Are you ready to transform your normal e-commerce business into one that experiences exponential growth year after year using online advertising? If so, this show is for you. Me and my guests will show you how you too can grow your e-commerce business to 7 or even 8 figures so you can go on more luxurious vacations, spoil yourself and your family, say yes to more opportunities, and become financially free so you never have to worry about money again. Welcome to the e-commerce performance marketing show. Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to the Ecom Performance Marketing Show. Now, I've got 2 guests today, not just one, but 2 from ChangeMoreLives.org. And we've got a powerful episode for you today that can really make a big impact on not only your business, but also the impact that you have through your business. So this is going to be really powerful. I'm really excited to have 2 awesome guests. I've got Jake Cortez here, and I have Sid Peddinti as well. I apologize, Sid, if I didn't say that exactly correctly. But these guys are rock stars, they're awesome people, and they've got a great mission behind them, and they're impacting a lot of businesses, and they're going to talk about what they do on today's episode. So welcome, guys, to the Ecom Performance Marketing Show.
Yeah, thanks for having us here.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys. Well, I'd love if you guys could just kick things off by telling the audience a bit about yourself and how you guys dove into business.
Well, I'll dive right in because it kind of like leads into how we figured out how to help businesses on this level, because I started out as Sid's client. And we were both in a mastermind. I had made a post about wanting to impact kids in prison or getting out of prison through a nonprofit venture-like structure. And Sid had reached out to me and said, hey, listen, this is what I've been doing. This is what I've been doing for the last 5 years. I'm a nonprofit attorney, and we will help you set up a nonprofit, get it structured, compliant, all of that fun stuff, and then we will help you get funded,
Nice.
By a large tech company. In this case, it was Google. So my nonprofit ended up receiving $10,000 a month in Google AdWords credits that I can apply towards getting my message out there, reaching more kids, creating a community, actually being able to impact lives and generate income. And I don't know what is better than that. I don't think that there's anything better than being able to reach through the computer screen. In this case, it's Zoom. I'm now doing Zoom calls casted into a prison. These kids
Nice.
are between
Wow.
ages 14 and 17 years old.
Wow.
Young
Yeah, that's
kids
incredible.
that, have lost their way. And it's been on my heart for a very long time. But for a very long time, I had this mental gymnastics going on. How do I impact the segment that I want to impact, but also live my day-to-day life? Creating a workbook or creating all of these things and this content for people in prison without any source of financial means to be able to support myself was such a huge diversion from my day-to-day, which was digital marketing and sales.
Nice.
And when Sid finally said, hey, Jake, listen, I see you doing the mental gymnastics. Don't worry about making money on this side. The kids are not going to pay you. The prison systems are not going to pay you. That is the philanthropic side. We're going to focus on the revenue generating side, which was educating entrepreneurs, business owners, and people that are new to the space around digital marketing and sales. Now, when people end up coming from this side as a result of seeing our ads, landing in our Facebook group, finally ending up doing business with our for-profit, we can take a portion of those proceeds, donate them back to the nonprofit in a self-fund manner.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got this system going. And then about 5 months ago in the mastermind that Sid was in, Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi had given him a shout out as being the overachiever of the group. And he ended up getting inundated with applications to the point where we were on a call, client attorney call, and he just basically said, hey, listen, I'd love for you to entertain the idea of us potentially partnering up to see what we can do and how much more impact we can make. And that's how Change More Lives was born.
That's awesome. See, I love that story because, for one, you have a really strong mission there to impact teenagers that really need that type of impact. They need help, they need direction, and you're doing that do that nonprofit. I'm actually working on something somewhat similar. I'm focused on the same demographic where I want to teach teenagers business and entrepreneurship through online business. And I've got that, in the process, as well as you and I have talked about prior to the recording of this episode. But I love hearing that. And it just shows the audience that you could think bigger than just your business. You could really have an impact, and you could also, use Google Grants to have that type of impact, which I know we're going to cover in a little bit more detail today. So that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Jake.
Absolutely. I mean, in the end of the day, we are the drivers of the economy. And if we are going to make it out of this new COVID economy, we have to start thinking differently in a collaborative mindset. Like, how can I maximize my movements to the point where every movement that I make is not only generating income, but also impact? Mm-hmm. And then on the other side, there are tax benefits and in ways where you can reduce your tax liability, but that money that would typically go to taxes can be repurposed for impact. Mm-hmm. And we have one of the best tax strategists in the United States on our team. She was just recently on stage at Business Mastery with Tony Robbins. So we are flying 1,000 miles a minute and loving every second of it.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, cool. Well, Sid, I'd love, to have you here on the hot seat, so to speak, and I'd love for you to also tell the audience about how you dove in, what your role is in changemorelives.org as well, and this way the audience can get to know you too.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, my journey into even becoming a nonprofit lawyer was a full circle. It's about 15 years ago when I was at university graduating from my undergrad. I had a very successful bakery at the time. We were doing upwards of $5 million a year. And then a week before my graduation, I show up one day and there's this massive excavator blocking my entrance, the parking lot. And there are 3 men in black standing there. And I was like, what the hell's going on? And so as I approached that, I mean, this was like, I was 22, about to turn 23. One of the guys approaches me and says, "You're served." And from my recollection, I wasn't married, I didn't have kids. I'm like, what's going on? Wow. And the other guy walks up and he goes, "Here's a court order that we're going to repossess everything in your factory." And this was a very successful business. We had a 10,000 square foot factory, millions of dollars worth of baking equipment. And I was confused. I was like, okay, as far as I know, we're very cash flow positive. All my bills were on time. And then the third guy comes up, he goes, "This is my card. I'm an auctioneer. If you want to auction everything off, let me know." And I was absolutely confused because I had no clue about what's going on. And then I look around and I have my 15 bakers right behind me trying to, whispering about what's going on. And it almost felt like an episode of The Apprentice. And I was going to say, "You're fired," but obviously I didn't have the heart to do that. But that's kind of how I got into law per se, because, that experience of, so what ended up happening was around 2006, we all know what happened, the economy crashed. One of my main banks that was financing all the equipment in my factory went bankrupt, went to the court, they did a corporate liquidation. I missed all the meetings because I didn't know what was going on. I never checked the mail or whatever it was. I didn't know the legalities back then. Never bothered to even know legalities because my business was successful. I never thought this would happen. And so, ended up at a stage where they went bankrupt. They were in a corporate restructuring agreement. And then the court receiver, the trustee, the bankruptcy trustee, made a fire sale of the entire business, repossessed all the assets, including things that were in customers' businesses like mine. And so literally overnight, I lost my entire business, fired all my staff. Wow. That was my graduation present. And so, my buddies were getting drop top Audis and getting all this stuff from their parents. And I was, went with my parents. I'm like, "By the way, guys, I just went bankrupt." I'm like, "I told you not to become an entrepreneur." I was the only entrepreneur. All my family's full of doctors and engineers. It's a very Indian way of doing things, which is, a lot of engineers and doctors for the most part.
Yep.
So
true.
I took the big risk and they're like, "I told you so." I was like, well, this is a learning lesson. So I didn't know what else to do. Ended up actually asking my bankruptcy lawyer if he had a job for me at his firm because I just lost my CEO position. He said, I do. There's a lady going maternity leave. You can come join her. So that was kind of how I entered into the world of law per se, working there, speaking with business owners. Then I quickly realized, hey, the recession is here. Were going bankrupt day in and day out. And so that was my chance to make that pivot. Ended up going to law school, becoming an attorney, focused on bankruptcy law for about 8 years, helped over 10,000 people get out of really bad situations. Most of them were small business owners because that was in my heart. I was a small business owner. People don't think of these things. And I was like, maybe through my experience, I can share these strategies, help them avoid these situations. And so around 2014, 2015, having done about 10,000 of these small, business bankruptcies, I decided enough is enough. Let's shift gears. Let's start educating people about how they can avoid going bankrupt, how they can beat the odds of recession. I mean, we all know the stats, 75% of businesses go broke in the first couple of years. And by the time you hit a 10-year stage, it's literally 10% of businesses survive, which is alarming, yet we all want to open businesses and get into entrepreneurship. But what I realize is if you do things the right way, if you equip your business with the right strategies, the right models, the right internal structure, you can be that 10% of businesses that go past that limit. But that was a blessing in disguise because, when I went bankrupt, literally within 2-3 years, all my competitors were wiped out too. The economy crashed, all businesses crashed regardless of where they were. And so I found my new path. Luckily, the universe pointed me in the right direction. So
everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, it happens for a reason. And so I started getting into the world of nonprofits around 2014, 2015. Although I was filing nonprofits before that, I realized even in that world, I mean, it's such a hazy world, even to most business owners right now. We've all heard about nonprofits. We all know they get funded by grants. We all know there's tax benefits, but nobody understands the nuances in that world. And there are a lot of gaps in the market in the sense that attorneys deal with the filing, grant writers deal with grant writing, website gurus and nonprofits deal with websites, the compliance and tax experts deal with taxes. So there's so many different parties in the game. And so that was my opportunity to say, you know what, maybe I should create a business that kind of fuse these models. And so at a very preliminary stages, that's kind of how this entire system was born. Just out of necessity, I was like, listen, I mean, if nobody else is doing it, I'm going to be the person who does that. And even in my own business, I mean, I was in LA at the time, 2015, just decided to start a family, was still having my law firm and, competing in LA as a young lawyer at the time, trying to go up against real sharks in the marketplace. It was an expensive endeavor. And, I was going to be bankrupt if I didn't change gears quickly, just marketing dollars, trying to get my word out there. And so that's kind of how all this happened. I opened a nonprofit to educate small business owners, started doing seminars, workshops, webinars, created courses. Now I know course creation is a hot thing right now, but I've been doing this for a while. And then one thing led to another. I started getting grants from different companies, quickly learned that, hey, if I could position these two things the right way, this was the recession-proof model that I was after. And that was my quest, is to go find this recession-proof model, not only for myself, but to share this with other business owners. And, 5, 6, 7 years later, we've uncovered so many different strategies, literally help people in, hundreds of different niches, symbiotically fuse a nonprofit component to a for-profit. And, the biggest thing I realize is when people think nonprofits, they think charity. That is not the only type of nonprofit that exists. When you think about it, educational centers, we all are involved in education in some aspect, sharing the IP that we know to your dream customer. And before any transaction, unless it's necessity where it's like food or clothing, there's an educational component, whether it's an e-commerce product, whether it's a law service, whether it's a doctor, whether it's an online marketer, whether it's digital marketing, whatever it is, the customer needs to know the value of what service somebody's going to provide to them. So that's the educational component. And so what we now do is, fuse it in a way so that people can donate their educational component, their IP, if I want to call it that, into the nonprofit. Number one, you get more exposure because you have grants towards exposing that content. Instead of doing it for free in your for-profit, what if now you do it in your nonprofit and actually get a pat on the back for it? And number two, you get the fair market value deduction of that item as a charitable write-off at the top layer for
Nice.
gross adjusted income. So
can you break that down? Because that sounds very intriguing, and I know that the audience is probably intrigued like I am right now as I'm hearing this. So it sounds like you said at the start of this, you kind of figure out a way for-profit, non-profit to be able to benefit from each other, essentially. So maybe you could just walk me through, when you get a client, let's just say you get an e-commerce client. Where are they at before they've done business with you and they've gone through your process, and where are they at after they've experienced the entire process and they've seen that impact?
Absolutely. So when you think about impact, there's different layers of impact, right? There's an impact from an educational point. If you open somebody's eyes to a new concept, that's one way of impact. It just doesn't have impact, is not in the truest sense just feeding the homeless or getting somebody out of poverty. Yes, that there are different layers of impact. I would say that's, probably the highest level of impact, changing somebody's life in a positive way. But breaking it down or going further down, let's say it's an e-commerce company who does whatever. They have a clothing company or they have some products to sell. The traditional market is that let's make more business. The more money we make, we reinvest it back into the business, whether it's advertising, operations, delivery, whatever it is. And you keep recycling so that your profit margin eventually increases as you scale up because of economies of scale. That's a traditional model. With everything going on in the world right now, businesses and even the large companies that we see, Fortune 500 companies, are becoming more and more involved in social components, right? The whole concept of social responsibility, that as business owners, we have this duty to go out there and change lives in one way or another. And so what if you can do that through your business, where you can fuse whatever, let's say, a cause that you care about, or even if it's educating somebody. Like for me, I didn't even think about at that stage changing lives, like eliminating poverty or homelessness. Yes, I do that now, but at that point in time when I started all this, I just wanted to change a business owner's life so that they can provide for the family, they can avoid what I went through, lose everything, and be able to sustain themselves and build a sustainable business so that they can obviously get their kids are taken care of, their wives are taken care of, or husbands, or whatever that may be, or parents. And there's, and the impact that those kids don't end up in that doing things they probably shouldn't be doing because of all that, right? This is all a cycle. So whether it's an e-commerce company or some other company, when you understand how to fuse that nonprofit side of it, so of course the legalities behind setting it up. Number two, coming up with that mission, like Jake's mission was very solid, helping prisoners coming out. And we have people doing all kinds of stuff, fighting sex trafficking, feeding homeless kids. I had a mission when I was in LA where I was surrounded, where my office was, there was a lot of gangbangers, quote unquote. And so I went on a mission to change these kids who are in the Bloods and Crips, to get them out of these gangs, teach them to become entrepreneurs, give them a new way of life. And e-commerce was actually the avenue that I started with. So what we would do is go buy refurbished phones and laptops, load them with Shopify and BigCommerce, these e-commerce platforms, and essentially get them to take their creative genius of tattooing and put it onto a shirt and go sell it.
Definitely, that's awesome.
Essentially, it's a whole new path. They can live life in a more legitimate manner without having to resort to those things. So we've been able to change a lot of lives by doing those kind of things. And obviously, as a business, if you have the social philanthropic element, you have two options. We all have two options. Either we go to a business that just charges you for what they do, or you go work with a business that donates 10, 20, 30% of their revenue, even at a gross level, into these philanthropic causes. Which one would you choose? And let's say it's the same pricing. obviously number two, right? And so there are a lot of advantages that people don't realize that come with starting this nonprofit social philanthropic component. Of course, it's building your legacy through that process that you can share, you can stand out in the market. You know, you have tax breaks. The IRS is happy to give you the tax breaks for it because they want more people involved in philanthropy.
Yep.
Of course, there are companies out there, Fortune 500s, who are funding billions of dollars. So at every stage, the deeper you dive into it, the more and more it's almost like an onion, but a reverse onion where it's actually good. The deeper you dive in, the juicier it gets. You know.
Yeah. Nice. So, you know, based off of what I'm hearing, let me ask you this question. So can an e-commerce company then, can they maybe separate their content, like maybe their blog, for example, and turn that into like their nonprofit that just provides value and education out to an audience? Can they do that then, following your process? Okay.
Yeah. Their blog,
nice.
They
that
can
works
even
really well.
donate. They can even perhaps donate a certain amount of clothing or whatever they're selling into the nonprofit, even from a tax strategy standpoint. If you're able to calculate, let's say, I'll just take an example. Let's say in the year you have $100,000 of taxable income, or your tax liability is $100,000. What if you can donate a portion of your content or even your clothing or whatever you sell to the nonprofit, so you can go and feed others or provide it to people who need it, and reduce that tax, what you're going to pay the IRS, to $30,000. You have a $70,000 write-off, and you can actually see it going to somebody who actually needs it, right? So there's a lot of ways that these fusions can work.
Yeah, that's awesome. So an e-commerce company could just basically like separate their blog and their store, and then on their blog also they can also mention that they also represent a nonprofit in addition to the store, and then on top of that they can then contribute maybe some percentage of their sales or maybe a portion of their products that they carry, let's just say periodically, to like a nonprofit cause that they're a part of through that separate entity that they've established that's tied to that blog, it sounds like.
Absolutely. And there are a few companies who do this who are very successful, and they've tracked their growth. And I know that there are a couple out there that I always constantly look at in the e-commerce world who are doing some amazing things, saving elephants, saving like wildlife, saving the environment, because we all know the clothing and the e-commerce space, there's a lot of, it's not as sustainable as people think. So there's a lot that they're doing, trying to recycle their goods and products so that it goes back into the environment. So there's absolutely a ton of stuff that e-com store owners can do.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what are some of the like just outcome benefits that someone will experience if they take action and they go through your process, whether they do it on their own, maybe with some education, or they just go to you guys and say, hey, I need your help, can you walk me through your process? Like, what is like the actual like if you could itemize the benefits, what does that look like?
So I would say the benefits for me, just being a client and now a partner in this company, is one, I wake up more energized knowing that it's not just about winning the income game. It's not just about that. On some level, some kid's life is going to be impacted by the work that I'm doing. That gives me juice to know that this kid, hopefully I can provide him that seed. Not all kids are gonna grasp it and water the seed and run with it, but if that one seed can be planted in one of those 15 kids' heads, and they actually, water that, and they just go with the process of, taking it a step further, and I can develop my company so that this way they have a network to tap into when they get out. It's no longer the motivational push to do better. It's the spiritual pull of me doing something that's good for the planet, that's good for humans, that's good for mankind, and like Sid said, legacy-wise. So that's number one. Number two, you got $10,000 a month in Google AdWords credits. I mean, come on. Like that right there, in and of itself, like You got one of the largest companies on the planet saying, hey, yes, we support your nonprofit mission, and this is how we will support it. Now go and do good work. Do no evil. You know?
And now with that, you know, because I mean, I'm a marketer, I'm an advertiser, you know, that's probably that's like the sexiest part, in my opinion, of that, besides purpose, which is that first thing you mentioned. But my immediate kind of skeptical question that maybe comes from the audience as well is, can that grant be used towards the actual e-commerce store? Or can it only be used to promote, let's just say that they follow that process that I just mentioned, where they pull out their blog, they have it on a separate domain, this way it's tied to the nonprofit. Can it only be used to promote the content on that nonprofit site?
Yes.
Question. So it is for the nonprofit content, but again, it's the whole concept of the nonprofit itself that we're trying to debunk in the marketplace, because a nonprofit can do almost everything and more just as a for-profit can do. So a nonprofit can have a full-fledged store in there that you can pay yourself from the revenues. You're allowed to take a salary. When I think nonprofits, I used to think charities. Now I think universities. I think zoos. I think museums. I think National Geographic, multi-billion-dollar organizations who have, you know, staff who are well paid, who are changing lives, who have grants to keep these organizations alive. Universities like Harvard and MIT, I mean, they make hundreds of billions a year. Obviously, their staff is very well compensated, right? So money is not an issue. Selling things are not an issue. They're still having the impact they want to have. And so, you know, at a core level, it's the whole concept around a nonprofit itself that, of course, you can have everything you do you're not in a for-profit. What if you can duplicate that, have two of those entities with a slightly different brand? Now it's, you know, the nonprofit is getting funded for free, where you can do all those things, sell all the same stuff. Or the other way, especially if it's, you know, the educational component. Listen, if somebody does a good job in educating someone, chances are they're going to be hired, or their product's going to be bought, or their services are going to be sold. And so it's one way to really get.
And that's you know, just to pause there. I mean, that's why content and actually like providing value to a cold audience is such a big part of the RM5 formula strategy and process that I've been teaching throughout this entire series. You know, we're like, you know, 60 plus episodes now at this point. But I love how that ties in to what you're talking about. So anyway, I just wanted to, you know, point that out to the audience.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about even a more traditional service, like a lawyer or doctor, right? The first call with this, or even in e-commerce, whatever it may be, the first call is always that educational component, or in this case, it might be a blog, or it might be a podcast, or it might be a set of videos, or the benefits of whatever somebody's trying to offer. Why should somebody buy this product or service? And what can they benefit from that? And so if that component is taken care of, and you don't have to spend a dime to advertise it, you can get laser focused in getting your content more content rich, you know, contextually rich, and even get better at pitching your stuff, because now you know that you have $10,000 a month or $120K a year at a base level just to advertise that, which you don't have to pay anything back. You know, that's significant firepower that most small businesses don't even have, you know, that they're not spending right now to advertise their stuff, even on the for-profit side.
Totally.
So, you know, when you strip out all those layers, obviously there's a ton of benefits.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I want to be respectful of your guys' time. I know that we're getting close to the end of the episode here, but you know, thank you so much for coming on and just, you know, teaching the audience here what's possible. You know, it sounds like this is a no-brainer for anybody, for one, that wants to be able to build their e-commerce business, which everybody here watching this wants to do that. But beyond that, it's really a no-brainer if you want to think beyond your own business and you want to actually have an impact and create a real legacy, which is what true entrepreneurship is really all about. So I love how you guys pointed out that by going through your process, it's about really establishing like a bigger purpose, actually accomplishing that bigger purpose, getting like a Google AdWords grant, which can benefit the nonprofit and the for-profit simultaneously. And then on top of that, there's some like some substantial tax benefits, which I know we didn't really dive into specifics, but I don't think anybody wants to hear that anyway. Either way, the bottom line is you could save a lot of money. Instead of giving all that money that you've earned through your business and your nonprofit to Uncle Sam, you could actually save some of that money and you could use it, towards your business or making a deeper impact on that purpose through your nonprofit. Did I kind of summarize some of the biggest benefits of your process and what you guys do?
Absolutely. I mean, to sum it up, we like to call it the double bottom line philosophy, where you have revenue as a bottom line, which is a traditional way of doing things, and now you add a different bottom line, which is impact, where you can start measuring both simultaneously. So that's kind of what it is.
That's awesome. Okay, cool. Well, I've got a bonus round. This is the last part of the episode, and then I'll let you guys go, and you guys can tell the audience how they can reach out and find out more about you guys. I think it's a no-brainer that they should do that. So I'm going to ask both of you guys this, so you guys can both answer these questions. There's 4 questions, and each of these questions you have to answer with only one word, okay? So what caused your biggest business success to date?
Bankruptcy.
That's such a unique answer. Nobody said that, that's for sure. What about you, Jake?
Drive.
Nice. All right. What advice do you have for other e-com business owners?
Focus, plain and simple.
Okay, great. What about you, Jake? Trends. Yes, absolutely. Okay, how would you describe yourself?
Out of the box, if that's what we're...
We'll call it hyphenated. What was that, Jake?
Blessed.
Bless, you said?
Blessed.
Oh, bless, yes. Okay, got it. Yep, that's awesome. It's cool. Love the gratitude. All right, and then what do you see in your future?
Consistency.
Massive growth with a hyphen in there.
I'll let you get away with it. All right, cool. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. How can the audience, whether they're listening or they're watching this episode, how can they reach out and connect with you guys and really go through this transformational process in their own business?
So you can reach us at changemorelives.org, or you can reach me through my email, thejcortez@gmail.com.
Okay.
J Cortez on Facebook, the J Cortez on IG. We do have Facebook pages.
Or you can reach out to Josh and he'll connect us.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely. And anybody that's been watching the show, they know I'm super engaged with everybody. I do webinars twice a month, and I've got that free group, so you guys can always reach out to me and just tag me if you need a direct connection, to these guys. These guys are awesome. They're going to take care of you. But go ahead and shoot Jake an email at thejakecortez@gmail.com to get on a phone call with him. Find out more about how to go through this process. They can really make a big impact on the lives of a lot of people, whoever you choose to serve in your legacy, and also on your own business as well. It can really help you grow your business drastically as well. If you want to find out more, you can always go to changemorelives.org, and you can do your own research, and then you can contact them directly on the site as well. All right, thanks guys for being on the show. I truly appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks for having us.
Take care.
Right,
bye guys.
Thank you for tuning into the e-commerce performance marketing show. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment with a timestamp of your favorite part and share it with a friend. Until our next episode, here's to you and the success of your e-commerce business.